Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Cerebellum Podcast. So today we're going to be talking about how you can effectively lose fat and build muscle through resistance training. So last few episodes we talked about how you can lose fat, build muscle through nutrition, through steps, literally just walking. So if you haven't listened to those podcasts, watch those podcasts. You can go ahead and watch them after this one. But just to check in with you guys, if you are watching this on YouTube and you're seeing the video and you're looking at my eyes and maybe the sides of my mouth, you're gonna be, and maybe even my hair, you're gonna be like, Josh, what is going on, mate? Is this sort of like a midlife crisis? No, well, I hope it's not a midlife crisis at the fine age of 22. But my eyes are like this because I have been traveling so much recently and just trying to get 7-8 hours of sleep in. So my sleep schedule is a little bit off. Also, my stomach has had some problems in the last few days. So my weight's gone up and my body's just been retaining a lot of water and just recovering and stuff like that. And then my hair is just my hair. But also the sides of my mouth, I've been eating a lot more pineapple recently. And so what I found is that when I eat pineapple, it's so good. Obviously, everybody loves pineapple. But when you eat pineapple, for some people, you get like this little red mark, which is a little bit annoying on the sides of your mouth from all the citric acid, which is interesting and a little bit annoying if you're doing a video form podcast. But anyways, that's what we're dealing with today. So I hope you guys are doing well. Like I said, we're going to be talking about how you can effectively lose fat and build muscle through resistance training. So there's going to be 3 key steps to this. And so obviously we're going to go through those. I'm going to give you those 3 key steps at the very end of today. But let's just go ahead and let's dive into key step number 1 for losing fat, building muscle through resistance training. So number 1 is the quantity of workouts that you're going to be doing. So in order to effectively lose fat and build muscle through resistance training, you're going to want to ideally do 4 times, at least 4 to 5 times per week. You don't really want to do more than 5 times because then that sort of seeps into recovery and sort of the benefits of that are going to be not as great as if you had just done 4 or 5 times per week. Because then you're going to be digging into recovery and you're going to have to recover more and then you're going to get less out of your workouts. So I'd say the sweet spot is between 4 to 5 times per week for getting your workouts in. So if you do less than that, like if you can only do 2-3 times per week, that is so much better than just doing nothing or 1 per week. So if you are feeling like, oh, well, Josh says I need to do 4. If I don't do 4, I'm an absolute failure. That is not true. I'm talking about how you can effectively get the most out of your week and your workouts. So this might be different for you if you have, a very, very busy travel schedule, if you're always moving around and that sort of thing. Maybe if you have, youngins and you're always at the house and that sort of thing. But if you significantly want to improve your, say, physique in the next few months, trying to get at least 4, maybe 5 times per week of resistance training. And so that's key number 1 is the quantity. Now, key number 2 is, what do you think it's going to be if the first one's quantity? It's going to be quality of the workouts. So what does your workout actually look like? What are you actually doing? So when it comes to resistance training and building muscle and losing fat, you're going to want to focus on going to what we call muscle failure. So if you're going in and you're doing, say, I don't know, maybe a few workouts per week, say 4 workouts per week, but you're not really testing yourself, you're sort of just going through the motions, you're not going to get the most out of your workouts and you're not going to get the best results. And for people who are listening to this podcast, you're investing time and energy into listening to this podcast. So I'd assume you probably take time out to invest in your health. And so if you want to invest in your health and you want to get the best results for yourself, then you're going to want to push yourself to basically failure for every exercise that you do. Now, in terms of the exercises that you do, we can talk about that in a second. But just to finish up this point here about the muscle failure, what this means is that you can't do any more reps after you've done the exercise. Like, you are done. You're finished. You cannot do any more reps in that exercise. So, for example, if you're doing, say, a dumbbell shoulder press, and you are going through it, and maybe you're using 20-pound dumbbells or whatever it is, and you're doing, say, 5 reps and 6 reps, and your goal is, like, say, 8 reps, but you get to 8 reps, and you're like, well, I could probably do, like, 3 more, then you're probably not going to muscle failure. Well, you're not going to muscle failure. And the reason that you want to go to muscle failure is because then that will allow you to essentially, this kind of sounds terrible, but damage the muscle fibers as much as possible in a healthy way, so that they can rebuild as much as possible. If you think about it like a slingshot, right? The farther you bring that band back, the farther the ball will go, or the rock or whatever it is will fly. So the more and more that you push yourself, obviously in a safe and healthy manner, the more and more that you push yourself in exercises and to muscle failure, the more benefit you're going to get out of it. So thinking about it that way is like a slingshot. So always trying to go to muscle failure. And then for your actual workouts, I always say, in terms of what you do, I always say try and get, 2 compound lifts in for your upper body and then lower body, and then 1 or 2 accessory lifts after that for your upper and lower body. So maybe you're doing, maximum. I really only do 6 exercises, 3 upper body, 3 lower body when I go to the gym. And so that might look like, okay, maybe I'm squatting, and then I'm doing bench press, and then I'm doing Bulgarian split squats, and then I'm doing, let's just say, dumbbell bench press, and then I'm doing, and all of these, you can tell the first 2 are, especially the first ones, are big compound lifts. So squats, what that means is you're using your hamstrings, you're using your quads, you're using your glutes in order to do this exercise. That's what it means to do a compound exercise, is you're using multiple muscle groups. For bench press, you're using your triceps brachii, you're using your deltoids, you're using your pectoralis major. You're using all these muscles and these muscle groups in order to perform this lift. Now, an example of an accessory lift, right? So this might be your last exercise, is like a dumbbell bicep curl, where you're just hitting your biceps. Or maybe, a lot of these you're going to find on like machines. So like a leg extension, for example, where you're just hitting your quads. That would be more of an accessory lift, rather than like a squat, which is more like a compound lift, because you're hitting so many more muscles and muscle groups. So that would be quality, is focusing, number 1, on quantity. So how many times per week are you going to go? Number 2, quality. You want to go to muscle failure. You want to try and get at least 1 compound lift in, and then a few accessory lifts in as well for your upper and lower body. That's how I do it. That's how I've seen the best results for not only myself, but other people. And then the third thing for all of this, and this sort of, this is probably one where people don't put enough emphasis on, I think, in the fitness world, but is honestly your rest in between your sets. So if you think about it like this, your rest equates to how well you are going to be able to perform in your next exercise, like how much you're going to be able to lift, how many reps you're going to do. If you think about it that way, then you think about, okay, well, if my first exercises are, say, we go back to the compound lifts, like a squat or a pull-up or something like that. Well, if I'm doing a squat, I'm probably putting a lot on the barbell. Like, there's a lot of weight that I'm going to use, and I can't do that many reps. Maybe I can only do 6 reps with that. So I know that I want to do as many reps as possible because this is a heavy weight. So I'm going to have to give myself more time in between sets in order for me to do that. So what you'll see is for heavier lifts where you're using more external weight in order to perform the lift, you're going to want to use more time in between sets so that you can perform more reps with those exercises. So I'd say for the first 2 lifts, if you're doing, say, an upper body and a lower body lift, like we'll just go back to the squat and bench press, I would recommend, if you're doing pretty heavy, like pretty much as heavy as you can go for, say, 6 reps, and you want to make sure, hey, I'm getting pretty much 6 reps every single time, then you're going to want to put in at least 2 minutes, probably maybe even 3 minutes of rest in between each set. And that is because you're using so much external weight in order to do this exercise that hey, I can't, if I only give myself 30 seconds a minute, I'm not going to be able to hit 6 reps. Now, if you're going into 4, 5, 6 minutes, you probably just want to dial down the weight a little bit more because that's just going to eat up time and, to be honest, not the risk reward, but how much you're actually going to be getting out of that. If you really need 4, 5, 6 minutes, your form is probably off as well, I would assume. So I would just stick to trying to get, at least 6 reps in for your first lifts. So your first 2 lifts, trying to get 6 to 8 reps in, as many as you can do in that range, and trying to get as much weight on as possible, assuming that you're doing it correctly, you've got the right form, and you're safe as well. So that's that. Then when you go into more exercises in the rest of the workout, maybe you want to do less weight but more reps, and that's great for hypertrophy, so muscle building. And so maybe you want to do, instead of 6 reps, go to like 8 to 10. So for like a Bulgarian split squat or something like that. So exact same thing. So you want to do the weight matches, like let's just say you can only do 8 reps with 25-pound dumbbells for each leg on the Bulgarian split squats. So you want to probably do 90 seconds in between those exercises so that you can go ahead and make sure you can get those 8 reps in. Now, if you find yourself, even after the 90 seconds, in that range of 8 to 10 reps, you still can't perform those lifts, well, you probably need to drop the weight a little bit, right? I'm not talking about your body weight. I'm talking about, the dumbbell, the external weight that you're using. Because if you're, say, doing, 8 to 10 reps, and you're resting for 90 seconds, and you're not able to perform at that weight and consistently get in that range, well, then you probably want to drop the weight a little bit. And then for the final ones, what I always like to do is I actually like to use my own body and do a lot of body weight stuff. So I'll do like chin-ups or push-ups or stuff like that for like my last exercises. Some core stuff too. And for that, I like to do as many reps as possible. Very low sets. So I'll do 2 sets and I'll give myself about 30 to 60 seconds rest in between. And that's just going to absolute muscle failure. Literally cannot do any more than that. So good rule of thumb for all of this for rest time is if you're doing, say, 4 to 6 rep range, give yourself at least 2 to 3 minutes. If you're doing 6 to, say, 10 rep range, give yourself 1 to 2 minutes. And if you're doing over 10 reps, give yourself at least 30 seconds, maybe even a minute of rest. Because in order to perform that effectively. So those are the 3 things that are going to help you to lose fat, build muscle, and overall just be more effective in the gym for specifically resistance training. So number 1 is we talked about quantity. So how many times per week should you go to the gym? Number 2, what we talked about is the quality of the workouts, going to muscle failure, and what the actual exercises look like. And then number 3 is your rest time. So how much time do you need in between exercises in order to perform the best and to effectively lose fat and build muscle. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of today's podcast. Again, if you guys ever have any questions, or if you have topics that you want to go over, just let me know. Leave them in the description. And if you guys haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you next week. All right, bye-bye.